This week I'm driving the 2022 Jeep Wagoneer Series 2. For 2022, Jeep entered the large SUV market with the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. Most people think the Grand Wagoneer is larger and bigger than the Wagoneer, but actually the Grand Wagoneer offers more luxury. So if we compare the Jeep products with the GM products, the Wagoneer is going to compete against the Yukon and the Grand Wagoneer against the Cadillac Escalade. Under the hood of this Wagoneer, we can find a V8 Hemi 5.7 liter matched with the Torq system. This is good for 392 horsepower and 404 foot-pounds of torque, matched to an 8-speed transmission. So I'm gonna go on the road and see if I'm able to save some fuel with this Torq system, and also if we have to make a big sacrifice on the performance side compared to the Grand Wagoneer, who's got the big 6.4 liter Hemi engine under the hood. All right, I'm gonna test the acceleration with the Wagoneer. I'm gonna put it in sport mode. We've got the Hemi under the hood, but we're not in the small Grand Cherokee like the one I drove before. We'll see all this Hemi does with that big Wagoneer SUV shell. All right, it's not super quick. You can do the 0 to 100 kilometers in about 7.8 seconds, quarter mile in about 15.8 seconds. These are kind of numbers you can find with the Tau, with the V8 5.3 liter. Maybe the Tau is going to be a little bit quicker. Especially with the new model we just came out lately at the Detroit Auto Show with all the police pack things on it. Not super quick. The 6.2 feels quicker also, the one you'll find inside of the High Country or the Denali. The EcoBoost also is quicker, so performance wise not the best on the market. On the road with the Jeep Wagoneer this week, really comfortable on the road. Obviously we're on air suspension. It feels a little bit higher than the typical GM Yukon or the Expedition and all that. Just a quick reminder, I own GMC Yukon Denali 2021, so this is really my type of vehicle I'm driving every day. So obviously this one's a little bit higher off the ground. It feels like the center of gravity is also higher, probably because this is a Jeep. It's mostly focused on the off-road more than the handling. I could easily say, when you're driving a GMC Yukon with the air suspension and also the magnetic ride, you've got a better handling. It's also a little bit lower to the ground. From my point of view, I think especially the GM products, the large SUVs, because they're doing so much fleets, police, special services like the FBI, secret services and all that, they need to build those large SUVs to comply with the driving of these emergency services, I could say. So handling is a priority more than the off-roading. So probably if you do more off-roading, the Jeep will be a bit better. If you're enjoying a little bit more to push down the curve your large SUV, you're gonna have a little bit more fun behind the wheel probably of a Yukon Denali or Escalade, but still pretty fun to drive. Obviously when I push it down the curve, it's kind of like wiggling, it feels high off the ground. Again, I'm not super confident when I push it down the curve, but driving on the road or a rough pavement of rougher roads, it's super comfortable and it stays true to the Jeep brand. Exterior wise, the Wagoneer is really similar to the Grand Wagoneer. We've got a little bit less, you know, flashy chrome and some logos all around. We've got different grills in the front, probably different wheels and all that, but the shape of the actual SUV, it's pretty much the same. You know, you really have to know your Wagoneers to tell from far away if it's a Wagoneer or a Grand Wagoneer. It's mostly the chrome and the luxury and all that. It stays true to that Wagoneer vibe, the Wagoneer, you know, old look back in the days. From my point of view, I really like the other model, the one who's all black. That's an option you can get with the Wagoneer. All black, I think it looks really good. We've got the big lettering Wagoneer in the front. That's one of the main difference from, you know, the Grand Wagoneer and the Wagoneer. Stepping inside of the Wagoneer, once again, similar to the Grand Wagoneer, but with less screen and less, you know, fancy stuff inside. It's a nice mix of the Grand Cherokee and the Grand Wagoneer from my point of view. We've got pretty much anything we need inside of this Wagoneer. We don't have any Jeep logo inside of this Wagoneer because it's a Wagoneer. We've got the Wagoneer logo on the steering wheel, so no Jeep logos. We've got a nice screen, 10.1 inches. Works pretty well with the latest Uconnect system. All the buttons are easy to find, easy to use, truck-like, but still with the luxury feel. It doesn't look like a truck, you know, truck buttons, but it works like truck buttons, I could say, but it's really easy to use. We've got a space to recharge our phone inside of this little compartment here. I've got another place here in the metal console we can open and close with a wire. We can put another phone there. Easy to change our modes. The suspension is adjustable also. You can raise your suspension with this button just right here. So you've got different modes. We've got normal modes, aerial mode. You also easy to step out mode, I could say, and we've got off-road 1 and 2, so it's going to raise the suspension to have more clearance. This is cool. You know, we can find the same stuff inside of the Chevrolet, GMC, and Cadillac products, this air suspension system. But otherwise, the interior we've got this week, we've got a nice mix of really like light color with some black. We've got some woods, darker wood. I'm not a big fan of wood usually, but inside of this Wagoneer with that darker tone, it looks good. If we step in the back, this Wagoneer can sit up to 8 people this week. That's pretty cool. 2 benches. You can have other setup with you know, captain chairs and all that. Pretty spacious. They say they're claiming this is the most spacious one on the large SUV market in the short version, I could say, of those large SUVs. Obviously, you know, probably later this year we're gonna have a larger Wagoneer, the Wagoneer L and the Grand Wagoneer L, with even more space, especially in the trunk usually, but still comfortable in the second row and the last row. The access for the last row is a little bit limited with that bench, but that's typical for those large SUVs. If we're taking a look at the trunk, this is the most spacious trunk when we're using all the seats. This is really practical. You know, inside of my Yukon, I don't have the Yukon XL. When I'm using all my seats, it's pretty limited in the trunk. It's way better than what used to be back in the day with the short version of a Yukon, but still having a little bit more space without having the long version of the SUV. It's nice. Speaking of capacities, this Wagoneer is the best in class for towing capacities. You can tow up to 10,000 pounds. This is pretty impressive. It's pretty rare, you know, the large SUVs are touching the 10,000 pounds, and this Wagoneer is number 1 with 10,000. Fuel economy wise, this week I was averaging around 13 liters per 100 kilometers. I could say, you know, with the Torq system, I'm probably about 1 liter per 100 kilometers better than the competition, especially you know, the 5.3 or the 6.2 we can find in the GM products. Not as good as the diesel, the Duramax we can find also in the GM products. That's obvious. The diesel is king for the fuel economy. We can do numbers around 8 liters per 100 kilometers, but for something high off the ground like this, the towing capacity, the V8 power, doing this kind of fuel economy, it's pretty decent. Price-wise, the Wagoneer starts at $81,495. And the model I'm driving this week, it's good for $89,180. This is not the full equipped models. It's a Series 2 with some Series 3 equipment. I could say it's really built from my point of view. You can get it into a Series 3 for the same kind of price. Obviously, the base price is kind of expensive, especially when you compare it with the Chevrolet Tahoe or Suburban and all that. A bit expensive. That's why, from my point of view, the Wagoneer competes with the GMC Yukon. I think this is really the focus of Jeep with that Wagoneer brand, without removing all the Jeep logos and all that. Try to focus to build a new luxury SUV brand, trying to do some kind of a Denali, Escalade name for themselves. Is it the right recipe? I'm not sure. I don't see a lot of them on the road here in Canada. I'm not sure about the US, but I think they've been achieving some nice things with this Wagoneer, you know, best in class, you know, cargo and towing capacities and all that, decent fuel economy, nice recipe. Probably not the best from my point of view. It's not enough to, you know, really disturb the big ones, the GM and the Fords and the Lincoln and all that. It's playing the game. It's not the best, but it's a nice recipe from Jeep, and it's a nice products. But still, you know, I think the GM products with the Chevrolet, the GMC, and the Cadillac, and the different models and all that, they still have the best recipe from my point of view. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer? Do you think this is the right recipe, or they're not there yet to compete with the big boys who never left the game? The Wagoneer is still new to the large SUV market, so let me know your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and we're gonna see each other on our next review.